Yo, Benny! I don't think he's home, man. Benny, man, yo. Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm MC Savant from the Cankersaurs. You can catch me on funnyordie.com/Cankersaurs, K-N-K-S-O-R-Z, you know what I'm saying? But right now, it's all about Benny TV. Yo, because my boy Benny the Gagoots got his own show. And I just want to give a big shout out to Benny. And in honor of that, I'm going to do a dope-ass freestyle, man. So he's got to figure out what rhymes with Benny. 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 What rhymes with Benny? Benny. What rhymes with Benny? Benny. He's in the Serengeti. He's hunting for a Yeti and he's always on the ready. And Benny's always merry when he's eating his spaghetti. But right now he's in the desert, so his palms are kind of sweaty. His good friend Freddie, he brought him that Ben and Jerry. And Yetis, they love the Ben and Jerry. So Benny caught that Yeti and we all threw confetti. Yeah, Benny. Benny TV, baby.
Benny TV, baby. Yeah. Welcome to Benny TV, the almost 4th of July show. I hope everyone's doing well. My week is doing okay now. Last week I had a little bit of sadness because if you've been watching the show, you see that I always I show clips from one of my favorite authors, Harlan J. Ellison. And I've shown clips of Ellison from his documentary, Dreams with Sharp Teeth. I've showed clips of him discussing writing, discussing screenplays. Well, sadly, Mr. Ellison, he was 84 years young, and he passed away this past Wednesday evening at home in his sleep. He was 84. He was ill. He had a stroke about a little over a year ago, close to 2 years ago. He had a stroke. He was coming back. He was getting better. How do I know all this? Well, I'm not a personal friend of the man, but I was on his mailing list. I guess you could say I was a member of his audio club, where you could buy CDs and vinyl, and you could buy books. So I was a big fan of his, and I was on his. I would receive newsletters, and I even received. I'll show you right here. I'm not going to do a close-up, but this was sent to me. Membership. I was member 567, and there was a newsletter called The Rabbit Hole, and his wife Susan, a wonderful woman, she would usually write that and put that out. She ran his business as far as selling his work, and she put me on the mailing list for The Rabbit Hole, because which was the name of the newsletter, for the fact that Harlan Ellison, he wrote a lot of great stories. He, as I've mentioned in the past, he wrote a few Outer Limits episodes. He wrote a Star Trek episode that was award-winning, the one with Joan Collins in it, called City on the Edge of Forever. He wrote the 2 Outer Limits with Soldier and the Demon with a Glass Hand. And he said Soldier more than Demon were they inspired the movie Terminator and the Terminator franchise. So I'll talk more about that later. But Harlan, if you watch the original Terminator, at the end it acknowledges the works of Harlan Ellison for those Outer Limits episodes, and you can get them as graphic novels too, which is really cool. So I was a member because many years ago Harlan had written a novel, I guess, to pay the rent. He needed the money. He wrote this novel called Doomsman. He was not happy with it. He didn't like it at all. When he switched and had a new agency taking care of his business, they reprinted Doomsman. To his dismay, he did not know what happened. So Doomsman was reprinted, and since he despises that book so much, if you were to bring that book to him when he used to do signings, he wouldn't sign it. And he would actually ask you if he could have it, and he would give you like something written, like, typewritten and signed by him. But he wouldn't sign that. He would destroy it. There are rumors that he would destroy it in public, or he would film himself destroying those Doomsman. Anyway, I went on eBay and I had sent him 3 copies, not all at once. I would send him ones and I would write letters. I knew he was a very feisty type of guy and he liked to get into it. I'm going to show a clip in a few seconds. And this clip tells you how he was. He had a love-hate relationship with fans, but he was really cool. But he didn't like mushy cuteness, so he didn't like people sending him Christmas cards or wishing him a happy birthday, things like that. So I would send these copies of Doomsman. I would send one at a time, and I would send letters to Susan, who, whenever I purchased something, Susan would always send a little, like a Post-it, or she would write a little note. Really nice lady. And so I would write letters to Susan Ellison, and I'd ask her how she's doing, tell her I have this copy of Doomsman, and by the way, how's what's his name doing? So I would tease like that. But I will talk more about Harlan. There's not a tribute show for Harlan Ellison, but I'd like to remember him as because he's a great part of this show, and he was one of my favorite writers that I got to meet. He was a great all-around writer. A lot of people categorize him as science fiction, but he was more of he was an essayist. He was just a writer. He was a real honest-to-goodness writer who happened to like science fiction and like those Twilight Zone edge stories a lot. But that wasn't all he wrote. I have so much of his work, and I was just I find myself privileged to have met him many times, and just to go to these conventions where he would be at this Star Trek science fiction convention in Stony Brook called the Icon. They do have the Icon again. It's somewhere else now, but those Icons in Stony Brook, I used to go. Harlan Ellison was a guest many times there, guest of honor. There were different types of shows, so I got to have little snippets of conversations, even a little almost an altercation with him one time, which Harlan was known for. But fun guy, really. I'm gonna miss him. I will talk more about his work later. We also have movie review coming up, but let's start off with here's a little clip of Harlan. Used to have this. He used to do these vignettes on Sci-Fi Channel. When Sci-Fi Channel first started out, they had a show on Sundays called Sci-Fi Buzz, which let you know what was going on in the world of science fiction. And Harlan had a segment called Harlan Ellison's Watching, and it was a commentary. So here's one of those commentaries for you. Hope you enjoy it. I'll see you on the other side.
I was looking at a Sci-Fi Buzz a few weeks back in which one of my commentaries did not appear. And people on the internet who had called in, I guess, to the Dominion online, the Sci-Fi Channel online thing, they said, somebody said, who made Harlan Ellison the conscience of science fiction? Who appointed him? And Mike Jurek tried to be polite about it. But I got the answer for you. You did, Pinhead. If you stood up and you did your job, I wouldn't have to be sitting here. I'm no different than you. You're filled with opinions, and so am I. It just happens that I got to the money first, that's all. I'm sitting here because they asked me to sit here. But if you were the conscience of science fiction, I wouldn't have to sit here and gripe about stuff. I could sit here and talk about good stuff. You see, there's a very strange relationship between fans and professionals. And on the one hand, you'll do something good, like sending money to the Joe Clayton Fund. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Joe Clayton, the science fiction writer, is in a hospital in Portland, Oregon, and she's got multiple myeloma, which is a terrible, terrible cancer. It punches holes in the bones. And I made an appeal for money. There's a little thing for the Joe Clayton Fund. I just got a fax the other day that told me that over $3,000 has been collected so far. It's probably more than that by the time you see this. But science fiction fans did that. On the other hand, science fiction fans think that they should be treated as if they actually put a writer where a writer is. I did an online at the science fiction convention for Dominion, and after it was all over, somebody who I'd called a pinhead because he'd asked me a stupid question and was more affectionate than anything else, complained that I had called him a pinhead. He said, "Gee, I wish you could have been nicer." And nicer ain't my job. Nicer is the kind of job for people who give a damn. and I certainly don't. I like my audience. I like them when they keep their place. I don't like it when, as one of the people on here said, he ought to be nice to the people who put him where he is. Let me explain something to you. Readers do not put a writer where he or she is. The writer does that. When you buy a book, that's what you're entitled to, the book. If you get in a signing line and a writer gives you a signature, or if there's an award ceremony, or if there's a convention, and they're kind to you, that's all largesse. It's lagniappe, as we say in New Orleans. That's what you're entitled to, is the book. And so do not think that readers put a writer where the writer winds up being. The writer does it by endless days and nights of working at a typewriter or a PC or standing at a lectern with a quill. That's why we have this wonderful love-hate relationship, you and I, and I'm here almost every week to keep you aware of what your place is in the universe. And if you think I'm, above my station, it's only because I'm really basically a wonderful human being, and I'm glad you understand that.
And welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that clip. And now we're going to talk movie reviews.
Movie and TV reviews.
And TV reviews. Cool.
One movie, 2 TVs. I kind of did like a thing with my hair where it's like flipping up now. I'm like a greaser.
Yeah.
Whenever I flip my hair up, I think of, Doug that was on Nickelodeon, the animated show?
Yeah.
His bully that had the green hair, the green guy.
Oh, yeah.
With the orange hair. He had orange hair and he was green. I always think of him. So I don't know, that's what went in my head. I was nothing like that, but that's what goes through my head when I see my hair start to stick up.
That's okay. I was referring to myself today as Scottish Terrier Man.
Scottish Terrier. Well, I mean, I think all weekend you were telling me that you were going to shave the beard, and you never did.
Because I want to shoot a couple of videos with the beard, because the beard's going to be gone for quite a while.
Okay. Well, this isn't beard talk. This is
Yes.
movie television talk. I don't have any photos this week. I kind of went photo crazy last week when I locked you in the car and I did my show.
I know. I was locked in the trunk for 45 minutes.
There was a bottle of water in there from like a week ago.
And I had John Santo outside the trunk doing his Trump impression.
It was funny. I could hear it.
Yeah, saying, Rizzuti, we're sending you back across the border.
He's like, you're going to be huge.
Huge.
Well, speaking of across the border, I saw Sicario 2 this weekend. Sicario Day of the Soldado, which is very much about drug cartels and immigration and modern terrorism. And Josh Brolin. It is the summer of Brolin.
Yeah,
it is the
yes,
third
it is.
film to star Josh Brolin in the past 2 months.
Yes.
The first was, of course, Avengers Infinity War. Then he was Cable in Deadpool 2. And now he is one of the 2 main characters of Sicario Day of the Soldado. Sicario Day of the Soldado is a sequel to Sicario, which came out 3 years ago, directed by Denis Villeneuve, and cinematographer was Roger Deakins, written by Taylor Sheridan. Only Taylor Sheridan, the writer, came on to the sequel because Roger Deakins and Denis Villeneuve was busy making a movie that we've talked about very much on this show, Blade Runner 2049.
Yes.
So unfortunately they weren't able to make this movie. But they brought, I forget the name of the director. I don't want to say it wrong, but I'm going to look it up right now. He's an Italian director. And they brought a cinematographer who was mostly known for a lot of Gore Verbinski films, the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. A lot of good films, good cinematographer. The main character of the first one was Emily Blunt, and it was Emily Blunt and Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro. And in this one, Emily Blunt is not in it, and the main focus is Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro, who were 2 side characters that kind of introduced her to this world of the government and the way the government fights the drug cartels in Mexico, kind of picking one horse against the other and doing a lot of shady, dirty. They have to do a lot of dirty things to get what they want. The first one is a great film. Technically, it's amazing. The score is great. The acting is brilliant. My biggest issue, there's a lot of great small roles from big actors. Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out has a small role in it. John Bernthal from Walking Dead, and he's the new Punisher. He has a small role in the first movie. Victor Garber has a small role in the first one.
I love him.
Yeah, no, it's a great cast. This one, like I said, they carried over, they changed it up, and they changed it up. They decided we're gonna keep Benicio and Josh Brolin. We're gonna get rid of Emily Blunt, which for me, my biggest issue with the first film was Emily Blunt. I didn't like her character. She's your audience surrogate into the world, and I didn't like that she's almost the antagonist of the film because she's constantly going against what they're saying. Like, it's one of those movies where it's like, the character is being introduced to this new world, and the people are introducing him. Instead of going along, she bucks at every single thing until the point is like, they're like, you have to get with the program or you're not going to be able to do this. And she's like, no, I'm going to do it my way. And then eventually, I can't do it my way. I have to do it the way that they're doing because it's the only way to get it done. That's not really spoiling the movie because I don't think you really even understood what I said.
Was the first one that big of a movie?
It wasn't a huge box office success. It made probably like $40 million. It was critically loved. I think it has somewhere in the 90s on Rotten Tomatoes. I loved it when it first came out. It was nominated for I think 2 or 3 Academy Awards.
Oh,
Best
that's pretty
cinematography. I think best editing. The director of the new one is Stefano Sollima. Stefano Sollima. He's an Italian director. He did the show Gomorrah, which is a very big show in Italy. I believe it's on Netflix, and it's I don't know too much about that show, but I know it's very popular, and I've heard a lot of big things about it. He's done a couple other movies, ACAB, Suburra. Neither film I've seen, but I have heard good things about the movies. And like Denis Villeneuve, he is a foreign director coming in to do this film that's not really, still a small budget, but it's, a step up for him.
For him, good.
And this film I liked and I didn't like. Overall, I do like the film because, like I said, it does the things that I wanted them to do differently from the first one. It's very grim. It's very dark. There's a lot of graphic scenes. There's a specific graphic scene that seems like something ripped out of like 24 or Homeland in like a terrorism outfit, because the plot of this one is the government is finally able to categorize cartels as terrorists. Okay. So they can start doing things that they weren't normally able to do. And Josh Brolin they never really exactly say he's a CIA agent, but he's a CIA agent who is dirty. And he's commissioned in this film by Matthew Modine.
Oh, wow.
And Catherine Keener, who's
nice
also
to see those two are getting some work.
Yeah, no, it's nice. He commissions them. They commission him to go after, and he says, I have to get dirty. And that's why we brought you in. And he's like, well, I'm going to bring in my guy. And his guy is Benicio del Toro, who is the Sicario of the films. Sicario's hitman in Spanish. And this one is Sicario Day of the Soldado, which is soldier. And originally this film was going to be called Soldado. It wasn't going to have Sicario in the title. It was just going to be called Soldado, and I guess in the shuffle they decided, let's change it because we want people to know that it's a sequel to Sicario. In my opinion, they should have kept it with just being called Soldado because it is a very different film from the first one.
All right, so you don't have to go into this film.
Not in any way, shape, or form.
That's
I went
great.
with 2 of my friends. One saw the first one, one didn't. And he wasn't a big fan of the movie, but he said, I knew exactly what was going on. I never once was like, oh, I wonder what happened in the first movie. Because anything about their backstory that they talk about in the first one, they bring back up in this one.
Oh, that's good. So,
and like I said, they aren't the main characters of the first movie. They're the side characters, so to put them more in the focus kind of works. For half of the movie, I say it almost works as a prequel. And I was kind of expecting halfway through to find out that it was a prequel. Only one other character from the first movie is in this film, who's a very small character. But other than that, it's all new characters. Same world, new characters. So I like that. It does kind of feel almost in like the John Wick sense, where these films are trying to, we built a world people like, let's try to expand upon it. And nobody can really do it like John Wick did it, even though some people don't like the second one as much as I do. I'm a big fan of John Wick too.
Right.
I think Sicario also falls for that. And also, it falls for the fact that when you had such an amazing director and amazing cinematographer as Denis Villeneuve and Roger Deakins, it didn't really matter who you were going to get. They were still going to be good, but they're not on the level. They're not on the same level. You know, it's like going from Jimi Hendrix as your guitarist to the guitarist of Nickelback. You know, actually no, he's better than Nickelback. But no, Nickelback gets a lot of slack, gets a lot of crap. They're musically they are very talented, even though it's like they're like the Cheetos of rock. That's neither here nor there.
I like that. The Cheetos of rock.
Yeah, they're like the Cheetos. That's neither here nor there. Like I said, Taylor Sheridan, the writer, is what carries over. There's parts of the script I don't really like. The ending leaves a little to be desired. They kind of set up to make another one. I don't know if they will, but they did leave it open for that. Overall, I did like it. I would give it somewhere in the 7 range, 7.4, 7.5. I give the first one a high 9. Give it like a slightly above 9. A fun thing, the cinematographer of this one was a cinematographer of The Martian.
Oh, okay.
With Ridley
yes.
Scott and Matt Damon. And that came out the same week that Sicario had his big expansion. And I remember seeing them in the same weekend. So it's funny that the cinematographer went and directed
Same
Sicario
cinematographer.
too. Like I said, the cinematography's good. It's just not. Roger Deakins is my favorite cinematographer of all time.
Yes.
If you've seen some of his films, they're amazing. If you just look up Roger Deakins and you look at his filmography, you've probably seen a ton of his films. And any of the ones you haven't seen, I would recommend to go watch just for the sheer camera work. He's been nominated a ridiculous amount of times for
Right.
the Oscar for Best Cinematographer, and only won for the first time this year for Blade Runner.
For Blade Runner.
Which was a long time coming, and it was almost like a
And the
amalgamation.
cinematography is amazing. in it.
Cinematography is amazing in Blade Runner, and the cinematography is amazing in Sicario, and it's good in Sicario too. It just doesn't. It's not the same level, and it's the same thing with the directing. But the directing is good, and the editing. There's a couple wonky things with the editing, which is one of the things that pulls it back from being as good as the first one. But overall, it's a good movie. Like I said, it's very violent. It's very brutal. There's a lot of things going on in the world today that maybe you want to go to a movie to escape and not deal with that. I'm usually like that, but I make the exception for certain movies because it depends. If the story is something I'm really interested in, I'll watch it. That's like a reason why I've never seen Syriana, that George Clooney won his Academy Award for.
Yeah, right.
I've never seen it because it's just one of those things I don't know. But then, like, I love The Hurt Locker, and it's weird. It depends on you
And
as a
this
person.
movie piqued your interest, is why you went to see
and
it.
I'm a big fan of Benicio. I'm a big fan of Josh Brolin, and I really enjoyed the first one. So I would say it's worth going to see if you like the first one. They've been playing it a lot on FX in the past couple days. It's on iTunes, the first Sicario. Give it a watch. If you like it, I recommend going and see the second one. It's a little different. The first one is more of a drama. This one's more of an action film. So that might pique your interest even more.
All right, now let's talk cinematographers a little bit.
Okay.
You say this is your favorite cinematographer.
Roger Deakins is my favorite
Roger
cinematographer.
Deakins is your favorite.
The one who did the first Sicario.
Okay. Now, there are other movies that had great cinematography,
Yeah.
like the cinematographer who Coppola used to use, who did The Godfathers and Apocalypse Now. I don't remember their names. I'm
Yeah,
very
and
bad that
Janusz Kaminski, who's Spielberg's main cinematographer, who I think he's done all but like 3 of Spielberg's movies, 2 or 3 he hasn't done.
And Stanley
He's
Kubrick.
brilliant.
Stanley Kubrick, was he his own cinematographer?
I think at times, just like how Robert Rodriguez was his own cinematographer, Steven Soderbergh was his own cinematography,
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, but in the most recently, his cinematographer has been the cinematographer of the new Sicario films.
Right.
Which is interesting to me. But yeah, a lot of directors like to do that, and for them, I know it makes them feel like they're more in control. They're a little more in control because they're controlling the camera and everything else.
And Stanley Kubrick, I thought he was amazing. I thought his films, you could tell when you were watching a Stanley Kubrick film. You could tell by the cinematography. And he was a photographer.
Yeah.
He started out as a photographer for Look magazine, which was a big magazine at one time. And there are some Stanley Kubrick movies that I think I have no idea what they're about. I think some of them, like that one, Eyes Wide Shut with Tom
Nicole
Cruise.
Kidman, Tom
Nicole
Cruise,
Kidman,
orgy
Tom-
one, yeah.
Which took like 10 years to make. And
It was on Netflix.
cinematically,
Couldn't get more than 5 minutes in.
yeah, the cinematography is brilliant in it.
Well, that
And
was
And The
Kubrick
Shining.
knew how to get amazing cinematography. You know, Full Metal Jacket has some of the most beautiful shots.
And
of
again-
boot camp.
Again, that movie
of a
was about boot camp.
Yeah, it's 90% about boot camp, and it makes boot camp look beautiful.
Yeah.
I have the filmography
great.
of Roger Deakins. I'm not going to go into all of his movies because he's done a ton, but I'll highlight a bunch. He did Sid and Nancy, which was the movie starring Gary Oldman as Sid Vicious.
Yes, I remember
That was one of his first movies in the late 80s. He did Air America with Robert Downey Jr. and Mel Gibson.
And Mel Gibson, that was
his first big foray. He was and still is the main cinematographer for the Coen Brothers. So he did Barton Fink.
I love that movie.
He did The Hudsucker Proxy, Shawshank Redemption, Courage Under Fire, Fargo, Kundun with Martin Scorsese,
Yeah, okay.
Big Lebowski, of course.
He's the cinematographer.
The Big Lebowski, of course. The Hurricane about Reuben Carter, starring Denzel Washington. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? A Beautiful Mind, with directed by Ron Howard, Academy Award-winning Best Picture. The Man Who Wasn't There, which is another Coen Brothers movie.
I
which
never
is
saw that
all done
one.
in black and white.
Yes.
We actually watched that in school when we were going over cinematography. That was one of the movies that we studied because just the way he's able to use, the way we use black and white now with cinematography is so fascinating because the way they'll use the lighting is so different. Because
Right.
now they use black and white more as a tool instead of a necessity like they did back in the day. If you're using black and white, you're using it for a reason. So you're studying it and you're doing it for deliberate reasons, and you can use the black and white and you can use the shadow and you can use that to get more of a different effect from the camera and from the viewer and from the eye. So
I
it's
have to
something-
watch that. That's should be
Yeah,
on
and
my
that's
list.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Right,
Billy
yeah,
Bob
that
Thornton.
should be on my list.
John Goodman's
then.
probably in it because he's in like 87 Coen Brothers movies. He also did The Village. M. Night Shyamalan.
I never saw that one. Yeah.
Jarhead with Sam Mendes. That's a movie that I don't like Jarhead. The movie looks great.
Yes.
Looks great. It pulls you in just because of the look and feel of it.
Right. I agree with you.
No
I don't
Country
like that
for
movie
Old Men,
at all.
another Best Picture winner. Revolutionary Road, Doubt, The Reader. These are all movies that were nominated for Best Picture or had heavy awards consideration. A Serious Man, True Grit, the remake
The
of True
remake of
Grit.
True Grit,
Not
okay.
the original True Grit.
Yeah.
This fits in with the story of your main topic when I'm not on today of the passing of Harlan Ellison. He was the cinematographer of In Time, which, as you may or may not know, In Time was known as it was a blatant ripoff of a Harlan Ellison short story called Repent Harlequin, says the TikTok man.
Says the thing. And tell why.
He never sued or took anything against the movie because, in his words, it was so bad that it wasn't worth his time to try to sue and get his name on a movie that was that bad because it would just die on its own. I saw that movie in theaters.
Yeah.
I liked it when I first saw it. It came out in 2011, and
Sometimes you see a movie and it looks really good the first time, and years later you can't believe, case in point, there was a movie Vanishing Point, and I bought the DVD and
I
brought
remember
it
this.
home, and you got to watch this
we
movie.
should point out you bought it when Blockbuster closed.
When Blockbuster closed, I
bought
went
it
there
'cause
and
they
got
had
a
it.
whole bunch of movies, and I got that one, Vanishing Point, with Barry Newman was in it, and it was about this man who all of a sudden he was just transporting a car from one state to another.
Yeah.
And the police wanted him to pull over. He wouldn't pull over, and all of a sudden there was a chase, and they were trying to catch this guy. And the whole movie is a car chase, which I thought was amazing. My friends and I liked it so much, we stayed in the theater for a second time. Then I watched it with my son, and I put it in, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I like this movie. It was, I just couldn't believe it. Anyway.
I mean, that happens. That's how I feel when I watch Phantom Menace again.
You brought up the Harlan Ellison thing. So since you were a filmmaker, and you studied.
One second. Let's just hold that. There's like 4 other Roger Deakins films I just wanted to say.
Okay.
He was the cinematographer of Skyfall, my favorite James Bond movie of all time, personally.
Yes.
Unbroken, the Angelina Jolie directed film about.
Which is supposed to be a beautiful
Yes,
movie.
about Louis Zampieri, which I own on Blu-ray on Steelbook, and you've never watched.
No, I didn't know
It's
that.
just sitting there on the shelf. It's covered in dust.
I'm going
because
to
you
watch
don't
it. I'm going to watch it.
Prisoners, which was the Denis Villeneuve movie that put me onto him as a director, which is starring Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal and Melissa Leo. You've seen it.
Yeah. It's that movie's excellent.
That's a brilliant film.
Who else is in that? That's
Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Terrence Howard, Maria
right.
Bello, Viola Davis.
What a great movie. You should see
Yeah, that's a
Prisoners.
brilliant film. So I love Prisoners, Unbroken, Sicario, like we said. Hail Caesar, which is a movie I'm not a big fan of, but the film looks amazing. It has
The
a great
acting's
feel.
very good.
I have a lot of issues with Hail
Okay.
Caesar. And then Blade Runner 2049, and then he's coming out with another movie next year. He's in his 70s at this point, Roger Deakins.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
Roger Deakins
right.
has been a cinematographer for a very long time.
yes.
He's a brilliant cinematographer. He's 69. He's about to turn 70.
Oh,
He'd
okay.
probably get mad at me if I called him 70.
Well,
I apologize, Mr. Deakins.
Some people, age doesn't affect some people as it does with others. I saw Mel Brooks the other night was on TV.
You were at Sardi's and you just ran into him?
I just ran into him. I was like, "Hey, Mel, how you doing?" He's like, "Oh, Benny Cagoots."
Yeah, he's like, I watch this show all the time.
Yeah, I love Benny TV.
He's like, I got a movie coming out next week, Hotel Transylvania 3.
Well, he's in that?
Yeah, he's Adam Sandler's father in this movie.
Oh, cool. Anyway, no, he was on the $1 Million Pyramid now. I don't know the pyramid.
Mom was screaming at me about it the other night.
Yeah, because what's his name was on it too. Kevin Smith was on it. Mel Brooks in his 90s, running around and still joking, still has it, and he's great. He has a house on Fire Island, and I never saw him. I know where it is, but I know people who said, you know what, he knows you because he's a resident of Fire Island, so he would know the people who work there and stuff. Because there's one electrician from Ocean Bay Park was in the neighborhood, and he was like, "Hey, Larry, how you doing?" And Larry's like, "I never even met him." He said, and he's like, he knows. So I'm sure he heard of Benny the bartender back then.
Sure, let's go with that. I like that idea.
Let me tell you, you were talking about the movie In Time.
Mm-hmm.
Harlan did not sue for that. Mm-hmm. Something went on, a legal thing with the Terminator. Mm-hmm. And that's why they had to put his name, and they gave him they actually paid him $70,000. $65,000 for the creative thing, and he made them put his name on there.
I bet after Terminator 3, he was regretting putting his name on there.
And $5,000 to keep his mouth shut for a year. It was like for a year he couldn't say anything.
Yeah, he couldn't say anything about it.
So they gave him an additional $5,000. At the end of that little clip I saw where he was talking about it, he said, all they had to do, instead of giving me a hard time and having to find a script he said, all they had to do was say to me, look, we're inspired by your episodes of Outer Limits, and we have a new take on it, a new twist, and we'd like to do it. And he said, I would have let them have it for free as long as they put my name on it. And
that would have been fair, yeah.
He said he would, but because they made him go through the legal...
Yeah, then I'm like, well, now I had to pay for a lawyer, so
right.
now I want money from you.
So now, and this is verified by the fact that since he passed away, there are people posting on his Facebook page. And on there, someone posted that he made an independent project when he was in college, did a film project based on one of Harlan's short stories. He made the movie, and then he sent a letter with his phone number, his contact information to Mr. Ellison, who, if you saw the clip already, you know he was a feisty guy. He said, Mr. Ellison, I made this movie on whatever story it was. I'd like to show it in film festivals and everything. He immediately received a phone call from Harlan Ellison threatening his life, threatening to ruin his career before it even got started. How dare you do something like that? And got really nasty with him. So this gentleman decided he wrote a letter. He wrote him a letter saying that I'm sorry, what I did was wrong. I should have contacted you first. What I did was wrong. I am not going to enter this film in any. I'm not doing anything with the film. I'm not going to. Harlan called him back, and he told him. He said, "Listen, I got a little crazy and everything. You can do what you want. Just put my name on it. Give me credit for it. Put my name on it. But I have to." And Harlan loved to be a teacher. He loved to give you a lesson. So his lesson to this man was, all a writer has are their words. That's all they have. And people steal those words from writers all the time, and they don't get recognized. So if you do anybody's work, you should speak to them first. And he told him, if you had spoken to me first, would have been no problem. But since you wrote a letter of apology, and he let him, and the guy said it was a great lesson he learned. And I saw him in panels where somebody would ask a question that was just to hear their own voice, like they do on Facebook. People write things.
Yeah.
And Harlan actually turned around. That was a stupid question, right? That was, and the other people on the panel are still talking, and Harlan's looking at the guy saying, that was right? Admit it was a stupid question. So, and okay, do you want to talk anymore, or?
Well, I mean, how much time do you have now?
I got plenty of clips and stuff. Okay, I would like to just tell this story, which I don't think you remember.
Sure.
But I took you to that science fiction convention I mentioned.
Yeah, I do.
The story.
I have like flashes of memories of that.
Okay.
I was very little.
You were very little. You were like 6 years old?
Might have been younger than that. I might have been 5.
5? All right. So let's say you were 5. And the one thing I remember, we met Kenny Baker. Kenny, the guy that went inside R2-D2.
Kenny the camera guy.
No, the guy who was in R2-D2.
Yeah.
And when we went home, you told Mom that you were taller than him. You were amazing.
Probably was.
You were taller than him.
I was a big kid.
So when we got there, I took you, because I think Mom was working that Saturday, and I took you to the convention. And we went around, and there was a lot of walking for a little kid. And then you showed me there happened to be a marathon of Pokemon. And I didn't know Pokemon at the time.
I was a little kid.
You were a little
kid.
I knew
Pokemon.
So you introduced me to the Pokemon. And then I think they gave
the greatest moment of my life. I could watch Pokemon in the theater. It was awesome.
Right. We were sitting in the theater watching a Pokemon marathon, and I knew Harlan was going to be doing a signing in like 2 hours. So we had plenty of time. Or he was going to be doing a reading or something. So they gave out free pins in that place. They used to give out comic books. So you had Pokemon pins. They gave you Pokemon.
Yeah.
So I remember I wanted you to meet Ellison. And you wanted to meet him. You knew I was a big fan. So we went to meet, and he had just gotten in, and it was a table like this, and he was getting ready to sit, and he saw you, and he's like, "Hey, little guy," and he talked to you. And then, I don't know if you remember, he saw the pin you were wearing. He said, "Oh, Pokemon," because Harlan was into comic books and cartoons.
Yeah, Harlan was cool.
And he was cool that way. So he said, "Oh, you're into Pokemon?" And you were like, "Yeah." And he says, "I like them too. They kick the shit out of those Teletubbies."
I remember this, but I don't know if I remember it from the actual memory or from you telling me it a bunch of times.
I know, yeah, I know, but I
do remember that story.
I still remember, and see, Harlan never censored himself. There was a guy one time with like 3 daughters, and Harlan was telling dirty jokes and telling stories of his life, and the guy got up with the 3 girls, and he was leaving, and Harlan said, "Yeah. Save your marriage." And he used to tell people, "Look, adults are coming to see me, so I can't dumb down. I can't talk to the kids."
It's interesting to see how some artists and writers are compared to others, because I, in my adult life, didn't get to go to a panel with Harlan Ellison, but I have gone to panels with other famous writers.
Yes.
I went to a panel a few years ago, 2 years ago now, with Frank Miller. which is one of my favorite things of anything I've done at Comic-Con is the chance to go to this panel that was like it wasn't a secret panel, but it wasn't announced, and it just said like special event at the certain time, and you had to ask about it. And when I finally got someone to tell me, they're like, "Oh, it's a Q&A with Frank Miller," and I'm like, "Oh, I'll be back here in 3 hours." Like, and I got all my friends to go just by the thing of, hey, this is Frank Miller. Like, this is one of the greatest living writers and artists of our time.
Right, yes.
Let's go. And it was amazing, but he's very soft-spoken.
Right.
He's very soft-spoken, and I don't think he was always that way. He wasn't always a very soft-spoken guy, but when at this panel, he's become a very soft-spoken guy, and it's good to see that Harlan Ellison was always the same way.
He was never soft-spoken.
He was never soft-spoken. He would give you the hard facts.
Yeah.
He would cold, hard facts.
And he was, the first time I saw him with my friend Steve O, the stand-up comedian. And we were so amazed by how he took control of the stage and actually had you laughing. He worked the audience before he took out and said, "I'm going to read you now." First he worked the audience. And after we did a signing, and Steve said to him, "Wow, you could be a stand-up comedian." And he said, "I was." And he knew Lenny Bruce, but he said, "I was, but I wanted to be a writer."
He wanted to be a writer.
He wanted to be a writer, but it helped him with his platform, his lecture platform. Mm-hmm. He had a different lecture platform from most people because he was working the stage, working the room. And he told a story where he says, "I do a convention in New York, and all the way in the back, I see Stan Lee." He says, "I do another convention in Boston, all the way in the back, there's Stan Lee." He says, "I'm in California, there's Stan Lee." And then I thought, my God, I've fallen into one of my own stories. and then Stan Lee had said, because I was at this panel with Stan Lee there, Stan Lee said, "Harlan has the greatest lecture platform." So I wanted to learn a little something from him. Because Harlan was if there was 10 writers in a room and they were all going to read a story, Harlan's the one you'd want to read. You want him to read.
When I go to Comic-Con, I go to New York Comic-Con every year now in the city.
Yes.
And one of the things about it, I like to take advantage of what I like to call free Comic-Con, which it's not free because I pay for a ticket to get in.
Right.
But I try to have the most fun for the least amount of money. Because my second year there, I blew $1,000 in 4 days, and I'm still paying off that credit card. And
oh man.
can I borrow some money? So I've ever since then, that was 4 or 5 years ago, I decided I want to take advantage of other things because people go to Comic-Con all the time and don't have this problem. And my friends will go and blow all this money. I'm like, no, I'm gonna go to a panel. I'm gonna go to a free screening. I'm gonna go do this event. I'm gonna go meet some people. And I've gotten to meet a bunch of celebrities, artists, writers that I love, a bunch of people on YouTube that I love. Last year I got to meet Jeremy Johns, who's a very prolific YouTube reviewer, and I got to have like an hour-long conversation with me and like 10 other people who
so great.
Gathered around him after the panel, and he was so nice. He talked with us. It was his first time in New York because he's from the West Coast, and it was his first time in New York, and he met all of these people that were huge fans of him. And we hung out with him. We talked with him. We got to hear stories. He walked up with us all the way up to the front lobby. So some of these lectures can be really dreadful and really boring. It depends on who it is, and especially there are some amazing writers that can't talk to people very well.
That don't have that
personality, and they're very introverted, and that is why they're writers. But then there's others that's one of the reasons why I gravitate so much to Kevin Smith, because Kevin Smith is that big outgoing filmmaker.
Right.
And I've met him at Comic-Con 5 times. And he's very warming up the crowd, lively, almost like a stand-up comedian, but he doesn't do stand-up.
Right. And he remembers you, though.
He remembers me.
Some people don't remember.
The last time I saw him, he was doing it. IMDb does this thing at Comic-Con, IMDb Live, and he's the host. And it's like a few hours long. He interviews tons of guests, different shows, directors. And I watched it for a few hours, and then I went to that panel where I met Jeremy Johns. And he was walking up the stage, and I waved to him. I was like, "Hey, Kevin," and he was like, "Oh, hey, what's up? I know you. What's up, man?" Like he waved to me, and I was like, and I met him like 4 times, so it was good that like, you know, I don't expect him to remember my name or anything about me, but just, oh, that's that crazy kid who loves me when I come to New York, you know.
Yeah. All right. It was great. This was great. It went from movie reviews.
You have a little more to talk about. There was 2 shows I wanted to talk about. I didn't get a chance to because we talked cinematographers and Colin Allison. And clearly, my dad forgot because he just went, "Oh yeah." But I'll talk about them next week.
Well, you went into cinematography. I'm sorry if I.
It was part of the conversation of Sicario.
Yeah.
It's okay though.
We could finish up.
No, it's fine. But next week I'll come on. I'm going to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp comes out.
When does that come out? This week?
Yes.
I'm going to see that. I'm going to see Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Ant-Man and the Wasp comes out this week. The first Purge comes out tonight, actually. You can probably go to a showing right now. Leave your house. What are you doing? Go see the first Purge. It's the 4th one, but it's the first one. First. I got a theory about that movie, but I think Marissa Tomei's character is May. Her character's name is May. She plays Aunt May in Spider-Man. There's some things that happen in Infinity War. Maybe she's upset because of what happened in Infinity War, so then she created the Purge. So the MCU and Purge, the Purge CU might be canon. We don't know. That's all I'm saying. But next week, hopefully, I'll get a chance to talk about, I watched season 2 of Glow and I finished season 2 of Luke Cage. So I'll talk about those next week.
You'll be able to talk about them even if you have to lock me in the trunk.
Yeah, man, I'll do it again. They're both great, but I'll go into more detail about them next week.
All right. Hey, thank you. But the cinematography, I know how much you love film. And I wanted to know.
That is a thing I dabble in from time to time.
So I wanted to know about that. And I think I think it was interesting.
I hope somebody liked it. Yeah. I did. I had a good time.
Good. I had a great time, too. It's always fun with you on the show.
Let's shake hands for some reason. All right.
Okay.
We have a clip?
We have a clip from a movie which was adapted from a Harlan Ellison novella. And it's one of the ones that he's known for. He didn't write the screenplay for it, but it was based on his book, A Boy and His Dog. Here's the original
Is this A Boy and His Dog?
The original theatrical trailer of A Boy and His Dog.
Ooh. I like A Boy and His Dog. Don Johnson.
Yeah, Don Johnson.
His daughter is the girl in 50 Shades of Grey.
A very young Don Johnson and Jason Robards. And here we go.
Magnificently inspired. Richard Eder of the New York Times says, brilliantly grotesque. The Austin Sun. This may be the best science fiction film ever made. A Boy and His Dog. A film that has become a cult legend.
Right now I'm hungry and I want to get laid.
That's what you always say.
You go find a chick and I'll hustle us up some food.
I can't do good work when I'm hungry.
You ain't pulling that crap on me again. And you can shove that part about how you lost the ability to hunt for food when you learned how to talk.
No food, no females.
After World War IV, your dog will tell you what to do. How to laugh. How to love. How and who to kill.
That stupid broad.
You're so funny when you're sexually frustrated.
Damn it. When the hell am I going to nail her in there?
Simple. Stop shaking like a leaf and go do it.
If you continue to find the food for your dog, he will find you a woman. He is the only one who can.
Give him the girl.
We stay. Now, you got any helpful suggestions?
Yes, pull up your pants, Romeo.
In the future, your dog will tell you how to survive. Or you will die.
Our women can't get pregnant. Every once in a while, we need new blood.
Horse manure.
You mean you want me to knock up your broad?
Lack of respect, wrong attitude, failure to obey authority.
Oh, get the dramatic catch out of your voice and tell me how she's going to carry her share of the load up here. Tell me how we're going to fight
All right, okay. Just don't hang her.
Harangue, not hang her.
I don't care whatever the hell it is. You just knock off the crap and we can forget the whole stinking...
Well, maybe we should, you simple, dumb putz.
What the hell's a putt? What's a putt? Is that something bad? I bet it is. It's something bad. Well, I'll tell you, you better watch your stinking mouth or I'm going to kick you in the butt.
If you can imagine an excuse for World War IV, you will understand a talking dog.
Try to get back as quick as I can. We wait?
For a while. Then, over the hill. I'll miss you, Pig. I'll really miss you.
L.Q. Jones, A Boy and His Dog. A film that has become a legend by word of mouth. Rated R.
And that was A Boy and His Dog. That movie is really, was my introduction to Harlan. I knew a little bit about, I'm not one of those people, if I see a show or something, I don't always look. I'm bad that way. I don't look at the credits because I had seen Demon with a Glass Hand by Harlan Ellison and Soldier, which we talked about with Terminator. But A Boy and His Dog, I saw the movie and then I wanted to read this author. And Harlan, he was critical of it. He liked parts of the movie. He didn't like the last line. You'll know what I'm talking about if you see it. He didn't like the last line of the movie. But this was, and no pun intended, this was Harlan Ellison's pet project. And when I first met him 34 years ago, he spoke about, he didn't speak, I had read that there were other short stories. There are 3 short stories. A Boy and His Dog is the centerpiece. The first one is Egg Sucker, and then Blood's a Rover. Blood is the name of the dog. Blood's a Rover. And, or Run Spot Run. It was called Run Spot Run. So Harlan had always spoken about that he was going to turn them into a novel called Blood's a Rover. But he was very critical about, he said when he passed away, any of his unfinished projects were to be destroyed. So since I told you that, he had a stroke a few years ago. Him and a publisher put together Blood's a Rover is finally coming out. We have a cover of it. And you can get this on Amazon.com. You can, I don't know if it's out yet, but I will be getting what they did was, it's not a complete rewritten novel. They take the 3 stories, they put them together, and Harlan also was working on A Boy and His Dog television show. And he wrote a screenplay for that, for the pilot. So they put together the 3 stories about Blood the dog, the 3 stories, so A Boy and His Dog, Egg Sucker, Run Spot Run, and the teleplay for the pilot TV show of A Boy and His Dog. I read it's very good. It's not the novel that we wanted, but it was nice of Harlan to put this together. He know how much people love this one particular work. So he put it together. I think it's very interesting. And you can get more of Harlan's work on Amazon. Go to Amazon if you're interested. You can get audiobooks read by Harlan Ellison. You can get the documentary Dreams with Sharp Teeth. You can get I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which is also one of his very popular. And this is actually a picture of a mouse pad, which I own. I own a lot of, as I said, I have Harlan Ellison pins. I have the mouse pad. I have 2 copies of Dreams with Sharp Teeth. Great documentary. Also, in that documentary, at the end, he reads some short stories. So, and I believe what Ryan and I spoke about, the Repent Harlequin said the TikTok Man is on there. And here's a great graphic novel. I want to show you the picture before we go. Harlan Ellison, Demon with a Glass Hand. You can still find it. It's a graphic novel version on Harlan's teleplay. And it is the Outer Limits story. Anyway, that's all the time we have today. I hope you had a lot of fun. I hope maybe you even learned a little something. I want to thank my son Ryan Rizzuti for coming on, and so I didn't look like a boring dolt. And once again, a happy 4th of July to everybody. Have a happy Independence Day, a happy 4th of July. Make it a very safe one, and see you next week. Good night now. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching Benny TV. Don't go away. Laughter Saves Lives live is next.